Okay, apparently I'm live. All right, apparently I'm live. We have no viewers as yet. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. Okay, we have no viewers, although we are live. Now what do we do? Okay, we're going to set up the question and answer. There we go, that's set up. Okay, from the sounds of we got 13 of you on there now. All right, we're making progress. Now, if you want to submit questions, there should be a bar or link to the right or somewhere on your page where you're going to be able to submit your questions, and they will come up and I will see them. And when that happens, I will be able to respond to them. Okay, we have 16. I think we're making progress here. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes. It's only 7:26. I've got the sun setting right in front, probably going to be blind before the end of this. Thank you, Susan Jeske. I'm going to repeat your remark there so that it's handy. You have to click on the play button. There we go. 21, we're getting there. Okay, E and L Schweibert, you indicated that you can see me. I can only see that there are 24 viewers on now. I can't see individual viewers, though, not at this point. Okay, questions figured out. Trevor's figured out what he's doing. Good stuff, Trevor. All right. Okay, the viewers seem to be figuring it out. Another 2 minutes to starting, to beginning. But we are live now. Okay. Okay, good. All right, 24 viewers. I was expecting a few more. Obviously we have a few people who haven't figured out how to get in just yet. Can somebody respond back to me? Are you able to hear me all right without any problems? Can somebody throw that in that response as a question there? Because I cannot test with the bandwidth I've got. I cannot test the test my volume. Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing. I'm assuming that everyone can hear me. Okay. Can we hear me? Hello. Okay. Thank you, Dave Skolnick. Isn't it a nice hat? Not my usual one, as we both know. Okay, Greg Delazinski, saw your question about paperwork. We got it handy. Loud and clear. Thank you very much, Krista Croce. I appreciate that. Okay, everyone, we're starting. I don't think I need these. I hope I don't need these. There we go. Okay, excellent. Okay, hola, amigos y amigas. Welcome to Cruisers Hangout in Havana. As I mentioned earlier, this is a world's first. I don't believe, and to my knowledge, a Google Hangout has never been done from Cuba before, and at the very least, a Google Hangout for cruisers and boaters has not been done from Cuba before. So, this is the world premiere, and thank you for joining me. This will also be available on YouTube later. You cannot believe, however, how close this session came to not being broadcast. We had a major boating emergency tonight just before I came down to the internet area. My refrigerator and freezer ceased working. And when you have a freezer full of freshly caught Cuban lobster, the last thing you want is for your freezer to stop working. Fortunately, my boating buddy from Spain, Carlos, understood the problem and he was able to help me fix it. The lobster is saved and we are here. All right, I am gonna have to put these reading glasses back on. I'm not as young as I used to be. Okay, let me start with a screen share here. Once I figured out how to do that, it's a little different up here. Capture cameraman. Okay, where are we? Showcase, screen share. I'm going to go to a map, and I'm going to demonstrate for you what this trip was all about. This might take a second here. Bear with me. Okay, screen share. Ready, folks? Okay. Okay, here's how this trip went. We started out in Miami, of course, and we ran across to Bimini, through Chub Key and the Berries to Nassau. Notice that all of these are easily done trips that you can do over a day, down into the Exumas, and then went into the Exuma Sound and ran down to Georgetown, where I spent a couple of weeks. From Georgetown, it was Long Island and Indian Point, and then down to the Jumentos. Down through the Jumentos to Ragged Island, south to Cayo Domingo, and then on to Puerto de Vita, and then along the coast running to Puerto Padre, Bahia Noabitas, and through the Jardin de la Rey, which included Cayo Confite, Cayo Peridon. We made an attempt to go ashore at Isabela, which didn't work out, and then moved on to Veradero. From Veradero, on to Havana. And then from Havana, I will be leaving and returning to the United States, probably coming up as far east in the Keys as I can get and take advantage of the Gulf Stream in order to make as good time as possible. And that's generally the route that is easiest to do. Now, if you want, you can also, from Havana, run further west, and there's some great sailing through this area. You can come into the Gulf of Guanahacabibis, which is in this area right here. And from the Gulf of Guanahacabibis, I'm not going to try and say that again. From the Golfo, you go over to Cabo San Antonio, the far western end of the island, at which point you can either run around to the south, or you can jump off to the Western Caribbean, or you can turn around, as I've done in the past, and run back to Havana. There we go. Okay, so basically that's the trip that we have just finished. And that is the trip that most Americans, I think, will find the most interesting and easiest to do. There's no real serious challenge in terms of distances. Your longest run is the run from Cuba back to the United States. And most of the time, you're just going to be anchoring out or tying up at marinas. Okay, let's take a look and see which questions we've got here. Okay, yep, everybody can hear me. Okay, everything's looking good. Okay, we had one question, paperwork. I'm going to come to the paperwork in a minute, so bear with me. We're going to go back to a screen share where I can demonstrate a few things to you as we run through. So bear with me for just a moment, folks. That's not going to get me where I want to go, is it? But this will get me where we need to go. Okay, folks, if you are ready, oops, screen share. Okay. There we go, everybody. Bienvenidos a Cuba. And also from Aduana, who is the Cuban puppy that I picked up 6 years ago on my first trip here to Cuba. And bienvenidos from a Cuban gentleman who's hanging out down in the old town area. When you arrive in Cuba, one of the first questions, and we've already seen it here, is the issue about paperwork. I'm really glad to say that the paperwork issue, the clearing in, clearing out issue has become simpler in the past few years than what it's been in the past. And it was a challenge in the past. This last time I had 4 people board the boat. The paperwork took well under an hour, and then they were off the boat. It was simple, it was quick, it was clean. And what I've been finding this year is in coming along the coast, a lot of the times the Guarda doesn't bother with you. It's not like it used to be where wherever you stopped, they would turn up. This is typically what you'll see is that you'll have a Guarda personnel being rowed to the boat or coming out to the boat to check your despacho, okay? Now, here is just some of the paperwork that was required 6 years ago. Most of this paperwork is not necessary anymore, I'm happy to say, and it makes life a great deal simpler. The one piece of paper that's extremely important is still your despacho. Now, your despacho is typically referred to in cruising literature as a zarpe, okay? Zarpe, despacho makes no difference. What happens is they stamp your entry to a location, and then when you're ready to leave, they clear you out, as you can see here. And they'll do that each time as you move along. Okay, some new toys here we've been finding on since our last hangout. And this just goes on and on all the way through. The Guarda will take your despacho with them when they clear you in. They will return it to you when you leave. The other paperwork that's involved, there's going to be your paperwork for your marina. There's going to be paperwork for your medical pratique, for your agriculture, from the Ministry of Agriculture, I should say, where they make sure that all the food on your boat is clean and healthy. I've even seen them inspect it with a loop. But essentially the paperwork is much simpler, and they're always polite and easygoing. The other important piece of paper that you'll require, that you'll receive, is your visa, your tarjeta del turista. This is mine from several years ago, and this is what they give you rather than stamp your passport, and you should carry this with you at all times. Now, you can still have your passport stamped if you want, and as a Canadian citizen, I will have it done because it makes no difference to me. Now, the other thing that'll happen when you clear in is they will ask you about certain things. Do you have a, what's what I'm looking for? Do you have a handheld VHF? Do you have a handheld GPS? Do you have a satellite phone? Should you have any of these items, then they will put it inside a locker that you designate, and then they will seal it as they've done here. And what you want to make sure that they don't do is you don't want them to use the little stamp on it, because that ink is a real bugger to get out, okay? So once you leave your initial port that you have cleared in at, you can open this locker up, you can take the things out, and nobody will bother you about them again. It's really, really very, very simple. Now, if you are not a Canadian citizen, the other thing that you'll require is going to be health insurance. Now, American health insurance is not applicable in Cuba. You'll have to buy health insurance. It will cost you about $3.25 a day. There's the front page of the policy. Anybody who's ever interested, I have the entire policy, but of course it's in Spanish. Oh, and the other thing that you get when you clear in is you clear in and they have the drug dog come and sniff your boat. Now, one look at this dog tells you this is clearly the drug dog. The port that I cleared in at is Puerto de Vita. It is the furthest east port to clear into in Cuba. And it is, as I was saying a little earlier, it is 64 nautical miles from Ragged Island. So it's It's really no different than sailing across from Florida to Bimini, for example, 3 miles further. You want to try and start as early as possible. Starting at 10 o'clock at night is not a bad thing to do. Run your way south past Cayo Santo Domingo, run at, I think it's 209 magnetic, and arrive at Puerto de Vida in the morning. If you don't arrive in the morning, then what will happen is that they will ask you to anchor off in this area here, and you will remain there for the balance of the day and overnight until they can get the personnel available. However, if you arrive before 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, they will clear you in that same day. So obviously that's what you want to do. Now, this is the location that I cleared in, and it was quite nice. Cruising along the coast, some of the places where you will be asked to present your papers, such as Bahia Novitas, look like this, clearly very, very rough. However, Nuevita was one of the places where this time they didn't ask us for our paperwork. What they did was they sent a boat out to us, and they wanted me to anchor in 95 feet of water and stay there. And I explained to them that I was not anchoring in 95 feet of water. They then led me to a shallower area. We anchored there. They didn't bother with their paperwork. They scooted back to their little shack, and they left us there and in where we were anchored, and I left the following morning. So this was one of the locations where they insisted on us clearing in the previous years I've been, and yet now it's a complete non-issue. Going back to Puerto de Vida, you can see most, and this is also in most marinas in Cuba, and also in the new one in Veradero, which we'll talk about later. They want you to anchor out, not anchor out, they want you to tie up to the dock, putting your lines forward to a ball, as you've seen here, and then tying back to the dock in a form of med mooring. Now, I whined and cried and got them to let me tie up side to the boat, side to the dock, and it made life obviously much, much simpler. Well, we seem to have a problem with our picture here. I have no idea what picture that was, and I know why, because of the way I've done this. So we'll skip past that. Okay. One of the loveliest keys along the Cuban north coast is Cayo Confite. This is Cayo Confite, and you can see there's a lovely beach. It goes out a little bit further off to the right. Unfortunately, Cayo Confite has a guarda post, and it is a military base, and you are not allowed to go ashore here. Again, because of the dog, they let me go ashore, but they always made sure that there was somebody there just watching casually, but it was still making sure that I didn't wander anywhere that I wasn't supposed to. On the other hand, I had some lovely conversations with the major who was in charge of the location. Okay, moving on a little further. Here's another one of the keys along the north coast. They have a number of very intriguing and interesting lighthouses, such as this one here with the yellow and black on it. And of course, these buildings all down here that you see at the bottom, here and along here. Whoops, that's not working very well, is it? Here, along here. Why is that not working? Okay. Anyway, these are all part of the Guarda facility. These are all security establishments. They have various radios, they have various viewing equipment, and they keep a close watch along their north coast. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and just go back and check on questions within the thing. Okay. E and L Schweibert, your question, what is the story about going ashore? Does one have to be in a marina on the north coast? Typically, yes. On the north coast, you're required to be in a marina if you're going to go ashore and visit. If you're in the Keys and there's no guarda around, then there is no problem. But unfortunately, otherwise, you do have to be ashore. What if you have a dog with us? Greg, a dog can be a challenge getting it ashore sometimes. On the other hand, the Cubans are real good about this kind of thing. I, of course, have Adwana, and she actually has helped me in getting ashore and being able to walk her. Sometimes it means you have to do a little bit of pleading, but it gets through. Video feed keeps stopping. Tuddy, considering that you're over in the Dominican and I'm in Cuba, it could be an issue with either your internet feed or my internet feed. Okay, Trevor Dunley. your question, is it commonplace to anchor out in Cuba? Sorry, is it commonplace to anchor out in Cuba, or are there restrictions in many places? There are restrictions on the North Coast in many places. Okay. Okay, Van, let's see, what do we got here? No problem. Any more questions? We're just rolling through the questions, looking for them. Okay, whoop. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to go back to sharing, and we'll continue on with the photos and such that I was showing there. Okay, there we are. Okay, we're back to the lovely lighthouse, and there are several lighthouses like this. I have pictures of other ones, but I won't be showing them tonight. Okay, as you travel along the coast, you will meet lots of local fishermen, and they're going to be in a huge variety of boats. Now, these men are all fishing as part of a cooperative, and the food, the fish that they catch, becomes community property. Incidentally, while you can get a license for fishing, you'll have to talk to your marina manager about that, or to the personnel that clear you in. It is illegal to take lobster. Don't despair if you grab one or two. Nobody's going to get on your case if they even are aware of it. And very often fishermen will come out to you and be willing to trade lobster for a couple of sodas, refrescas as they call them, t-shirts, what have you. So there's always the chance of getting it. Here's another one of the boats. These two gentlemen are father and son. They're both named Enrique. These two men will stay out on this little boat. It's about 18 feet long, wooden boat, and they will be on this boat for 4 or 5 days at a time. They sleep on this bench right here, in all weathers, anchored out. Now, in order to eat, unfortunately, I don't have a picture of the back. There's a little small shelf. They put a small, less than a foot square charcoal brazier there, and they cook whatever they have available, which is usually fish. They were good enough to share their dinner with me the one night when I met them. I am still not quite sure what it was I was eating, but it was tasty. And I've learned when you're dining with people in third world countries that it's often better just simply not to ask what it is that you're eating. However, as you can see, they have traps. So they will set traps, they will fish with hand lines, and they will store their fish in the boat until they come back in. When I tied up next to them, along with my buddy boat, who you can see in the back here, that's Carlos from Spain. And Carlos fortunately speaks Spanish and made life a lot simpler for me because my Spanish no es bueno. We sat and we chatted with these gentlemen. As I said, they shared their supper. They tossed me a bag with half a dozen lobster tails in it, which I've been enjoying immensely. They like to share what they have with you. Cubans are very open that way. They're interested in your life. They're interested in what you do, why you're cruising. They want to know about you, and they're more than happy to tell you what they can about their life. Very, very friendly people. So that's Enrique and Enrique. Now, bear in mind, I will be speaking at the Annapolis on Cuba at the Cruising World seminars, and there will be much more information available at that time on this. Here's another couple of fellows who are fishing. Again, they fish for the cooperative, and their catch will become a part of the community property to be shared out. Now, this guy, believe it or not, is not sailing for pleasure. He is also fishing. And he has a small, obviously, home-built sailboat. But these boats are actually surprisingly quick, and there's more than a few of them out there. Now, this next one. This is a slightly bigger boat. That hammerhead shark is a little over 6 feet long, and it was caught about 200 yards from my boat. It was caught in a net, and by the time these guys got to it the next morning, it had died, meaning they didn't have to fight it aboard. This fish will be taken back, and it will be carved up and shared again as community property. Okay. Now, our next goal, after talking with Enrique, and I'm just going to go back to them for just a second here, they suggested that we go to their home port of La Isabela de Sangua, I believe it is, and that we would be able to go ashore there. Now, I didn't think this was the case. However, we did attempt to go ashore at Isabel de Sangua. That picture is not showing for some reason, and I apologize for that. It should be, but it's not. Anyhow, we attempted to go to shore at Isabel de Sangua. Here was my greeting committee is not showing up. Here was the military commander of the area, and that's Carlos on the right-hand side talking to him. And I could play the video and let you take a look at it, but basically what this gentleman had to say about our going ashore was no, no, and more no. We were absolutely not allowed to go ashore at Isabel de Sangua, which was extremely unfortunate. We would have enjoyed that a great deal. Now, I heard some bongs telling me there were questions, so I'm going to go back to the main page again and see what we've got here. Okay. Oh, maybe not. Oh, do you need paperwork for your dog, or is it easy to bring with you? Okay, paperwork for the dog. You need to have a medical exam done by the dog from your last destination. According to the regulations, it should be within 5 days. That's not always possible to do. You need to get a veterinarian who understands the situation and will mark, or rather will leave the date of the veterinary exam open, because you just can't always get there as fast as what is required in this situation. Okay. The other thing you need is the rabies exam. I've had some people, the paper showing that your dog has been properly vaccinated for rabies. I've had 1 or 2 people suggest that you should also have proof that the dog has a, what are they, those little microscopic things that they put in, and now I can't think of the name of it, of course. Microchip, that you should have the proof of the dog's microchip. Quite frankly, they've never asked for it, and all the times I've been here, even if they did ask for it, they have absolutely no way of what's the word I'm looking for? They have absolutely no way of ascertaining that it's actually there. Now, your dog should be microchipped anywhere, just for the dog's own safety. But as I was saying, it's not something that they're going to ask for. Interesting question from Dave Skolnick. Thanks, Dave. Any VHF Cruisers nets in English, French, or Spanish? Interesting you asked that in 3 languages. No. There are simply not enough cruisers. I have traveled 450 miles, almost 500 miles coming west, and the only other transient cruiser that I have seen has been my friend Carlos, who's traveling with me. We have seen no other transient boats. There simply aren't enough boats, people traveling the North Coast. Now, that may change once the United States starts to permit vessels to transit, to come to Cuba. But until that time, no. Even in Havana, at Marina Hemingway, or here in Veradero, there are no cruisers nets. Greg Delazinski, did I pronounce it right, Greg? I hope so. Has asked me what type of paperwork is required. You need your passport, you need the proof of your boat's ownership, and that's pretty much all the paperwork that you'll require. Okay, do we have any other questions here? Is it commonplace? I missed one. Oh, no, we answered that one earlier. Are there any service yards available? Sylvia Beamer. Sylvia, great question. There is service available here in Veradero. I believe that there is service available in Havana, and I believe in Cayo Largo. However, traveling in Cuba, you should be as self-sufficient as possible. Parts, for example, parts availability is very, very difficult. One fellow that I knew, he needed a water pump. We were in Cabo San Antonio on the West Coast. He was a Canadian. He had to use a satellite phone. He had to call the United States. The United States had to ship the part through Canada and via DHL. At some point, it ended up in Africa before getting to Cuba. It took over 3 weeks to arrive. It then cost this guy $350 in car rental to go to Havana, and a little bit of this to get the part out of customs and then get it back. And I think it was a water pump. It was worth, what, less than 200 bucks. You obviously can't bring everything, but you should definitely have basics like fan belts, water impellers, filters of every kind. You should be prepared for the basic problems. How's the rum? Brad Cox, I haven't had any rum yet. The wine is cheap, the beer is wonderful, but I'm going to be picking up some Santiago de Cuba rum a bit later tonight and testing it out, so maybe I can answer that question for you in a day or two. Okay, moving along in the questions, loud and clear. Good, good. Okay, what's the reason, from Chris DeCroce, what's the reason for, interesting question above that. What's the reason for them sealing up your handheld VHF and handheld GPS? Chris, I assume that they find security issues with VHF handhelds and GPSs if they were to be sold or given to a Cuban, that person could use them to flee the country in a boat. The thing is, once you leave your port of entry, you can take those items out of the sealed locker and you'll never get asked about them again. As is typical in Cuba, sometimes the answers just either aren't available or don't make a lot of sense. It's Cuba, that's all I can say. Okay, had an interesting question. Do you have your boat insured, or are you sailing naked? Because of the nature, because of the nature of the way I sail single-handed, traveling in a lot of different places and such, my boat is not insured. But even if it were insured with an American company, the insurance would be invalid here in Cuba. Okay, let's see, where are we here? Okay, I think I've covered all the questions for now. Let me go back to the sharing the page, and we'll get on with a little bit more of the information we had here. Okay. Oh, there's my buddy, Mr. No. As I said, we couldn't go into La Isabela, which was unfortunate. It was a pretty looking village, but this is the norm. So moving on from La Isabela, one of our next locations after another anchor out was Marina Veradero. Now, I'll talk about Marina Veradero more at the Annapolis Boat Show. It's currently sitting here at 600 slips. According to the marina manager, it is going to be increased to over 1,000 slips within the next few months to a year. They're working on it now. It's a very attractive marina, very clean. It uses the Med-Moor setup that you saw earlier in Puerto Vida. A lot of people are going to be uncomfortable with that, but that's just what it happens to be. Now, being in Veradero, my big goal was to get a bowl of ice cream, and I immediately went out and got ice cream. Following the ice cream, Carlos and I decided that we would go to the farmer's market and pick up some fresh fruit and vegetables and some meat. Now, transportation in Cuba is interesting. You can take one of these truck-like affairs right here, and it is a sort of a bus, a jeepney, if you want to call it that. You can take a horse-drawn buggy if you wish, especially in tourist towns like Veradero, or in Havana. You can take one of the cabs. Now, here was a funky-looking cab. This was in La Isabela. Some kind of three-wheeled boat and little Nemo and everything on it, or whatever that fish's name is. It shows here that it was a taxi for $3. That would be 3 kooks, or roughly, 40, let's see, there's 24 kooks to the dollar. This was less than $1. Unfortunately, since we couldn't go ashore here at La Isabela, we didn't get a chance to ride in this charming little taxi. Or, of course, you can ride in one of the old classic North American cars. And these are both taxis just waiting for a call. And believe me, these cars are all over the place. They are inexpensive. They're in beautiful condition, many of them, and just really, really nice. Here's another one just to whet your appetite. There was also a pink Cadillac, which I got video of, but I'm not even going to attempt to show video on the bandwidth that I have here. In any event, We ended up taking the least expensive setup, which was a, what's what I'm looking for? Which was one of these double-decker buses with no roof on it. And that allowed me to get lots of great photographs. These buses, these double-decker buses, run for $5 for the entire day. You hop on, you hop off. You just go round and round. It takes you all the way from out here at the marina, all the way to the far side of Veradero, almost all the way to the other major marina, Marina d'Arsenia. You can hop on, you can hop off, you can check out pubs, you can check out restaurants, you can check out the farmers market, which is what we did. Now here was the farmers market, and the food, the produce is absolutely fresh picked and cheap, cheap, cheap. I bought a considerable amount of vegetables for 2 kooks, which is, call it $2.25. But you can see peppers, not sure what those are to the right, garlic, lots and lots of that available, and all of it just fresh as you could possibly. Now the meat, the farmers markets also have the butchers at them, and this is a little more, this is very much a throwback, I guess we could call it, to the olden days of in North America, where your meat was carved fresh as you looked at it. Some pig's feet, again, a little bit better view. I'm not sure what this next picture is. Oh, my. Okay, Havana. In any event, as you can see, lots of great food, lots of great, lots of great opportunity. Pork is usually what's available. Chicken, rarely. Fish, very, very rare. Okay, we're going to stop the sharing again for a minute. I want to pick up a few questions that I heard coming in here. Oops, okay, we've seen that one. What is this? Oh, we've seen that one. Oh, hello, Brad. Oh, can you get the Cuban currency, or must you use tourist currency? Van, good question, and thank you for asking it. Typically, when you go to a Cadeca or to a bank, you will change your, let's say that you use American funds. You will change your American funds into kooks, and you will pay a 13% premium for this. There is talk that not Fidel, excuse me, but that the Cuban government will eliminate this 13% surcharge in the near future. This was in retaliation for something that the Americans did back in the 90s. Anyhow, the kook, C-U-C, which is the tourist peso, is tied directly to the American dollar. Should you, for example, come from Canada, you will have to change your dollars into American and then into kooks, and you will pay both the 13% and the current exchange rate, which becomes extremely expensive. Dave, sorry, your question, I'll come to that in a minute. Now, okay, what you should do when you go to one of these markets or one of the out-of-the-way restaurants that we've been to, you should change at least a few of your kooks into pesos nacional, which are the local currency. The exchange rate is 24 pesos nacional to 1 kook. And by the way, when you pay for something in pesos, in kooks, make sure that you get your change back in tourist currency and not in pesos nacional. It's not something that happens often, but it's something to be aware of. There's sharp operators in every country. Anyhow, in the farmers markets, in some of the out-of-the-way restaurants that you'll come to, the pesos nacional are what you spend, and as a result, things are extremely, extremely inexpensive. As I mentioned, I got a fairly large sack full of vegetables for the equivalent of 2 kooks, or $2.25, roughly $2.25. We had lunch later that day at a small restaurant. Lunch involved a refresca, a soda, I should say. It involved a couple of pieces of chicken, a small salad, some rice. That came in at something like $1.50. It was presented in what we would, a small cardboard box, a chip box, a French fries box that we see at a stand in the United States. The presentation was no heck, but the food was good, and it was extremely cheap. Okay, Dave, how much tourism from Canada, Mexico, and the European Union? Canada has millions of tourists arriving in Cuba every year. Your question seemed to oh, there it is. I don't know how many come from Mexico. I don't think there are a lot. There are a considerable number of Europeans here, but again, I don't know how many. Mexico, I think, contributes very little in the way of tourism to Cuba. So Canada is the big one, and I believe, and I may be wrong about this, but I believe I've heard the figure about 8 to 9 million visits a year. Contrast that with the United States, where not counting the official, what's the word I'm looking for the official visitors, a few years ago, they were thinking about 40 to 50,000 Americans were illegally coming over via a third country. I understand the number of the number of Americans coming to the United States now, since the changes in the licensing provisions, has jumped somewhere in the area of 25%. So considerably more. Should the United States finally get around to dropping the restrictions on travel as a tourist in Cuba, then estimates are huge. Boating traffic, they're saying 60,000 boats a year, which would totally overwhelm the ability of the Cubans to handle it. It's just not going to happen. Chris DeCroce, yes, Garmin's are not that accurate. His question is, what nav charts are the best? For paper charts, you want the NV charts. They're excellent. 4 charts cover the entire Cuban coastline. Only 3 of those charts are now printed. The southeast coast is not yet done, but I understand that it will be ready very, very soon. You might check with NV Charts at the Annapolis Boat Show when you get there. I understand Navionics is quite good in terms of charts. Garmin is not, and on my next trip, I will probably purchase a small second-hand chart plotter of another make in order to have better electronic charts. That being said, if you use your paper charts, if you use Nigel Calder's cruising guide religiously, along with the paper charts, and pay attention to what you're doing, you'll be fine, even with the Garmin charts, which, as I said, are unfortunately just not up to par. How do you exchange money? Greg Delzinski. Greg, you can change money by making arrangements with the marina manager. You can go to a Cadeca. All of the resorts and all of the major hotels will have a Cadeca, which is basically a money changing operation there, or you can go to a local bank and get your money changed there. So not a big issue. Okay, scrolling down, okay, let's see what else we've got. Oh, hey, Chris in Hawaii, nice to talk to you. I look forward to seeing you again. Yes, Chris says he's heard that the South Shore is more relaxed and is quite interesting. My understanding is exactly the same thing from everything I've heard. My game plan had actually been to do the South Shore this year. Unfortunately, I got quite ill in the Bahamas. I was concerned by the time I got to Cuba about the length of time that it would take me to do the South Coast and healthcare issues, and decided to stick with the North Coast. So I will be doing the South Coast next year and immensely looking forward to it. Chris, I hope you'll join me there. Okay, next question. Let's see, what if okay, we answered that question. Expenses. Somebody asked about expenses. That was Ben Ray. Ben, I just discussed money changing. Expenses, Cuba is very, very inexpensive. Your marina is typically going to cost you between 60 and 75 cents a foot per night. So, for example, my 34-foot boat is costing me $20 a night, not very much. The marinas are good and the marinas are secure. Okay, what else we got here for questions? Whoops, I think we saw something. Oh, that was just a comment. Okay, that's it for questions. For the moment, we're going to go back to our screen share and take a look at the balance of this. I want to bring you guys on to Cuba, or to Havana, pardon me. We're already in Cuba. Okay, we're back to our pork hawks. Okay, this is the entrance to Havana Harbor. This is the Castillo Moro, or Castle Moro. And this was taken at sunrise as I sailed past. I have a video online of sailing past Havana in the morning, and believe me, if you can get by there at sunrise, the views are spectacular. Here is another photo of Havana from offshore at sunrise. And again, the skyline is really fascinating. It looks very modern. As you get in closer to it, as you're actually there, there's my buddy Carlos. Yo, Carlos, ¿cómo es? Sorry, folks. As you get in closer to these buildings, you will see that they're actually very decrepit and falling apart and require paint and a lot of repairs. But the skyline itself is fascinating. Here's another skyline shot for you, right from the same location. And again, I think you can see a little bit better here that the buildings are looking a little bit rough. I'm going to see if I can enlarge that just a little bit, give you a bit better shot. See what we can do. Okay, there we go. Now you can see as you look, so these buildings are in rough shape. Incidentally, you can also see a crane in there. This is one of the things that's happening big time in Cuba right now. There is a great deal of tourism facility being built on the north coast, a huge amount of it. And this is, of course, all in preparation for when the United States finally allows complete tourism, American tourism to the island. Okay, we're going to go back to the questions again. See what else we've got here. Okay. Okay, 8:11. We probably have about 10 minutes left. I am going to see if I can get on a couple of photos that I was unable to get earlier, unfortunately. And let's see what we can do here. These are photos that I wanted to show everybody and that unfortunately just didn't show up. Okay, there we go. Nope, nope, nope. Unfortunately, no, they did not show up. Okay. How clean is the water for swimming? Van, the waters all along the north coast are spectacularly clear. You will find areas that are the same beautiful turquoise blue that you get in the Bahamas, in the shallow waters, obviously. However, Cuban waters are very alive. And as a result, even though the water is crystal clear and depths are 10, 15, or rather visibility is 10, 15, 20 feet, what happens is that the water looks much darker. It very often looks a very dark green, not quite an emerald, but you can still see quite clearly to the bottom. As for swimming, no problem at all. Nice, clean, great water. However, if you see anything like that, hammerhead shark, you really don't want to be in the water, do you? Okay. Dog, we've answered that question. Let's see what else we have in the way of questions here. Do you have paperwork as a commonplace tanker? Oh, here's a great question from Dave. I asked Nigel if he had plans to update his cruising guide as changes loom in the U.S. relationship. He said it was an interesting idea, but that he had a lot of commitments already on his plate. Accordingly, everyone keep your eyes peeled for them. Dave, interesting you asked Nigel that question. I asked him that question myself a couple of years ago. One of the other problems, of course, that Nigel discovered was that it was a lot of work and not a lot of profit from it. And I think that would be a serious concern for Nigel, or for anybody, of course. I will add that Nigel's guide is still very, very good. It is dated, and obviously there are things that are wrong, but it is still, in my opinion, the best guide out there. There's another guide that is currently making the rounds. I've had a chance to look at it. I've had a chance to use it. I see serious errors in it, and I don't see the same kind of precision that Nigel put into his guide with plans and such, making his guide such a useful item. That being said, I will be producing, or either Waterway Guide will be bringing out a cruising guide for Cuba. Oh, looks like I'm getting some reflection here, doesn't it? Waterway Guide will be bringing out a cruising guide for Cuba for the North Coast in the very near future. It will be available at the Annapolis Boat Show. Obviously, I will be having a hand in writing that, and I will be certain to cover a great many questions that people have and making sure that the facts in it are absolutely right. For example, one of the people doing the seminar circuit right now has told people listening to the seminars that credit cards, American credit cards, can be used in Cuba. That is incorrect. American credit cards cannot be used in Cuba. Okay? Maybe soon, but not yet. So if you are coming to Cuba, make sure that you bring money. Even American and European credit cards can create a problem. So you want to be able to bring adequate cash with you. Depend on cash because cash simply does not go wrong. Cooking, gas licuado as they call it. Again, there have been comments that the gas available here in Cuba is butane. I checked this with the marina manager the other day. It is not butane, it is propane, as Nigel Calder says, so he is correct on that. Regardless, even if it were butane, butane burns the same in gas appliances as does propane, so it would not be an issue. Okay, let's see what else we got for questions. Sorry, I have to chuckle at this. Perry McDonald has suggested, how about using the Active Captain website? From what I have seen of the Active Captain website, there is very little about Cuba on it. I would hesitate strongly, knowing the errors that are on the Active Captain website in the United States and Great Lakes, I would strongly hesitate to consider using Active Captain for Cuba. Cuba, by the way, in terms of navigation, this is not a place that you come to if you are a chart plotter navigator. You need to know how to use paper charts. You need to know how to read the water. You need to know classic navigation skills. And if you do not, you're going to find yourself in trouble. You're going to find yourself aground. You're going to find yourself lost. You have got to know what you are doing here in Cuba, okay? That means electronic navigation is in addition to, not your primary source of navigation information. If you come here with only the ability to use a chart plotter or not read a paper chart, you're in trouble. I guarantee you, you're in trouble. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Now, I should warn you folks, I have got somewhere between 8 to 10 minutes left on this. I can only get an hour's time on the card. I'm just going to keep talking till this quits. I'd like to be able to continue on longer than that, but unfortunately, Cuban internet is considerably limited. Okay, so let's see what else we have for questions. We've answered that one. We've answered that one. We're just scrolling on down looking for other questions. Okay. That appears to be about it for questions. And now I'm open for more questions if anybody else has them. I'm also going to go back. There were some photographs that I wanted to show you folks. And we will get to those in just a moment. Let's see what we've got here in terms of photographs of interest to people. There we go. Okay. We're just going to quit that one. Okay. Sorry, folks. I'm just scrolling through looking for stuff here that you'll find. Oh, here's a lovely shot. I'm kind of fond of this one. Okay, let's go back to sharing for a minute. I want you folks to see this one. Whoops. There we go. That is one of the lobsters that we had for dinner the other night, and it was excellent. And below it is a fillet of fish that I had the following night. And believe me, the lobsters are here, and they're just waiting for you to pick them up. The marina manager in Hemingway told me that the South Coast, you can actually look over the side of your boat and you'll see the lobster just walking along the bottom. You just dive down and virtually grab them. I myself speared 2 the other day, and had I had a proper way to carry them, I could have also gotten myself a triggerfish, which would have made for a lovely dinner. So yes, the lobster are out there and they're waiting for you. Okay. How is the drinking water? Ron Shaper, great question. I hear different reports. I hear people saying that the drinking water can be a problem because the infrastructure is so old. I take no special precautions. I fill my tanks with marina water. I have never been sick. I've never even felt sick. On the other hand, as with any water you don't know, you either probably want to boil it, or alternatively, you want to purify it with a little bit of Clorox or possibly iodine. But frankly, I've never had a problem with it, and I have no plans on taking any additional precautions. Perry, thank you very much for your comment. Daily cost of stay. Trevor Dunlow. Okay, overall daily cost of staying in Cuba, and did you dance it up at Kaya 62 in Veradero? Trevor, there is no video, there were no photos, and I think we're just going to have to keep that a secret to myself. As to the daily cost, if you're at a marina, figure on it being somewhere between 60 cents and 75 cents per foot per day. Over a month, there are discounts. Depending on the marina, they may charge for electric. Hemingway does charge for electric. They may charge for water, but it's not very much. But overall, staying in Cuba, especially if you're anchored out, cheap, 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 cheap. Food is cheap. Alcohol is cheap. Cigars, obviously, are very cheap. So yeah, it can be a very, very inexpensive place to cruise. Now, coming into the marina is obviously going to cost you a little bit more money, but that applies anywhere, doesn't it? Okay, got to run. Chris, thanks for joining us. Now, before I get cut off here, I want to mention that if you have questions, email them to me